Hey everybody, welcome to Mr. Brian's Amazing World. Today, I'm showing you what we did to put in our 2001 Subaru engine into our 1971 Volkswagen bus. I've had a lot of questions from my last video, and if you didn't see that, make sure you check that out. We do the whole tour of the bus. But this video is pretty much just going to be about the engine, what was involved, what we had to do, and a little bit of the restoration of the rest of the bus. Kind of neat. Let me show you, follow along, and make sure while you're just sitting there you hit that little subscribe button and check it all out. Thank you. So here's the Craigslist ad that started the dream. It had a Type 4 engine that didn't work and a paint job that was really horrible, and the rear tires rubbed the fenders, but it started it all and there was no rust in Pennsylvania. And got it back together and running a little bit. It kind of worked, but the engine blew and that was it. It was done. Time to change it. And then we got a Subaru. It's $500 and we started ripping the wires apart. What a project that was. All the wires that are yellow are for the airbags, and there's a lot of wires in this car. You don't realize it until you start cutting them and what's what. But you don't need most of them, but the wires are part of the computer and the engine and the main harness themselves. You can see the spaghetti there, and you just start the engine and start cutting wires, and if the engine dies, oop, you needed that wire. But there it is, all stripped and clean. Took quite a while to get it done, but now this is what you're left with, is all that you really need. The computer's in the middle there, and everything else hooks up for your ignition switch and your fuel pump and your relays to run your electric fans and your alternator, as well as, oh man, I don't even remember what else is in there, but your ground wires. You need lots of ground wires. But here we go. I put the computer up in the side wall here. I mounted it vertically so it stayed dry. It was a good spot. It was out of the way. There's always airflow around it, so it never gets that hot, even though the radiators are by it. And here we are ripping the engine out of the Subaru. Relatively simple process getting that out of there, and that was a donor car. It had 120,000 miles on it, and the timing belt was just done, which is important to make sure you get the timing belt done and the water pump while you have it out, and easily accessible. It was nice. I had a little help picking this engine up here from the backhoe, and I was able to set it down right on that tire and get it in the garage. Piece of cake. There it is, all in and mounted. Just needed to get the adapter plate and the flywheel and pretty much bolt that in, and okay. This is the beginning. Here we go, right first test.
Couldn't wait for this, it was so exciting.
Fuel pump?
Now the biggest problem is the computer needs to get powered twice before it's actually going to fire up. I didn't realize that, so I'm turning it. Everything's good except the computer's not getting power. Now as soon as I reset the key and try it again, see the moment. Oh, what a relief to hear that fire up. I was so excited. Quite a project getting to that point.
Run it, it's got radiators.
I mean, if you're mechanically inclined and skilled and you can do some stuff, I would go for it. It was really neat. I learned a lot. And now I couldn't wait to finish this bus up. That was a big motivating moment. So now, okay, let's make this bus pretty. I mean, the yellow paint job was a neat color, but boy was it horrific. And there we go. We'll go with these colors. Picked up good paint, and we're going to shoot it ourselves in the garage. Here we are sanding it and prepping it and get it all taped up. And again, the yellow, I did like it, but it was just such a really poor quality job. It needed to have better paint put on there and just not slapped together. And what a lot of work it is to sand and paint a car. I don't know if you've ever done that, but it's a great feeling. If you like painting, I hate painting houses, but I love painting cars. To see them all come together and take shape and life. Especially once you see it prime, like, holy cow. It took a lot of body work and prep, and, you know, if you've done any projects, they're not for the faint of heart, but the sheer excitement you get to see this candy cane looking machine come together, what a great feeling. And we painted this right in the garage where it sits. I set some fans up to suck the air out. I mean, I had no overspray on anything. It did work perfectly. Bought a new gun so I could spray a real nice paint job, and I've done a couple of them now, and that was slowly get better, and you slowly learn more stuff. I had the parts and pieces hanging here. You do the bumpers and the door. Moving along, finally ripped all the tape and the paper off. It's coming together.
Still had the windshield and all the windows to put back in, all the parts from the doors, but there it is on its maiden voyage, all shined up and finished. Its bumpers on, all the little rubber pieces, the strip around the chrome stripping, all their glory. And man, the thumbs up you get driving this around, everybody's waving at you. It's like driving around in a cartoon. Great, great, great project. But this right here is where I have my computer hooked up and the OB2 port in the back. It's so great. You can run Diagnostics and see what's wrong with the engine. And I mean, it's like a $30 little computer to read. It tells you, okay, it's this sensor or that sensor. Don't forget to add that. And good luck with your project. This is our next one, a 72 bus. And who knows what we're going to do with this, but it has a candidate already for a Subaru engine. Okay, well, I hope you liked that little slideshow of all our pictures and what we have. So here it is, all said and done. We were able to get the Subaru engine in here. I made my own special engine cradle to hold this in. It's pretty simple. I'll show you what that looks like in a second. Overall, we used almost all the parts right off the Subaru, even the exhaust itself. Got a U-bend piece of pipe for that so we can run the exhaust and make the turn, come back, piece of cake. The radiators, we have two radiators, one on each side. They're both from 97 Honda Civic, I believe they were off of. And we got the ones with the extra capacity, so they're double the capacity, and we're running two of them, plus electric fans. Now, when you're running the electric fans and the fuel pump, we had to get a fuel pump for this to run the high pressure for the fuel injection. But you're gonna need to run relays with your switches and your wiring. So we took those right out of the Subaru wiring harness as well, and there's quite a few of them in there. And I wired them all up, so as soon as you turn the key, you're just powering those relays, and those kick on to turn your fans on so you're not burning up your electrical stuff. Let's see, we had to run another fuel line for the low pressure return. So I was able to get out and go into the vent of the old gas tank, and it seems to work very well. The biggest thing when you do this is your grounding wires. I mean, you can see I have loose wires all over the place. They're grounding the system here, there, everywhere. This way, all these little sensors in there, they read the ohms and the resistance of the voltage in the wire and what the sensor is telling it. So if you have a spot that's not getting the right ground, it's reading a different voltage, it's telling the ignition to fire at a different time, or to dump fuel at a different time, or that your throttle's at the wrong spot. And that alone causes all kinds of problems. So that was really my biggest bug to work out with this per se, was to fix that problem and put ground wires everywhere. If you tear the wiring harness out of the Subaru, you're gonna see that there's a big giant black wire with a ton of ground straps and spots all over it. That was a whole procedure in itself, just pulling that out. Another thing you gotta change is your belt right here, because it had air conditioning and a power steering pump over here as well. I think this is a 130 millimeter belt. Then I would recommend trying to do it and keep your air conditioning. If it's remotely hot, you're gonna probably want air conditioning. It'd be kind of neat. It would have been easy enough to do. I would say this is my overflow jug here. And what I did with this, it's nice and visible, it's easy, there's a lot of fluid in here. If I have a problem, I have extra fluid I can put back up into the system. Now, I made radiator hose at the highest point I could find in the system. So when you're trying to bleed this and get all the air out of this radiator and the other radiator, it can be very difficult. So it's still, I don't have much room. I have maybe a little over a finger's width up top, but I can keep pumping fluid up there and get it to purge the system. And then I'm able to watch this bottle. If this ever moves, I know I had a problem, it boiled over, or there was an issue, and it's nice to be able to keep that easily visible and peace of mind. I also have a temperature gauge in there, which really helps, again, peace of mind, so you can see exactly where you stand with the engine and what it's doing. I had to do a throttle cable. I managed to be able to link the throttle cable from the Subaru and splice it together with the throttle cable from the bus, put a little wood block in here, and it works pretty well. It keeps it exactly where it needs to be. I've had questions about this sealing. I know on the original bus that had this rubber strip in here, it was very important because everything was air cooled to keep things sealed. On a water cooled engine, it's totally different. This can be completely open, and I did not cut this out. Somebody else hacked this when they tried to put a Type 4 engine into this bus, and I just saved it and figured, hey, it would work in here. So I didn't have to ruin another one. I just made that one work. the radiators, they are drawing their air from the side vents of the bus. So as you're cruising down the road, it's drawing air through here, running back down, and pulling through here, and then the hot air is out through the bottom. Piece of cake. Behind this one here is where I have the computer, and I mounted it straight up and down like this, so it's not sitting flat in a puddle if it ever does get moisture or water in there. So far, it's been fine in that spot. Now, one thing I did do, and you're not gonna be able to see this, is back here in the very corner, I wired in my OB2 diagnostic port. Now, nobody really thinks to keep that, and what a great thing to have, because I can plug the computer in, it'll tell me right away, okay, your crank position sensor is not reading correctly. Piece of cake, you just change that and you're done. You could read that at any car dealer or car maintenance place or mechanic, anywhere, and they can diagnose and fix your car from there. So it's pretty cool to have that feature. Let's see, what else am I missing on this? The ground wires, don't forget those. We have little pieces of a sled in here to help block the air, so it has to go through the radiators and keep it cool. So far, we've been doing pretty good with it. Haven't had too much problem once we got the bugs all worked out. Now, let me talk about the cradle. That's this that I welded here, and it just bolts across there. That's the only thing that I did to the whole bus, so I can cut that off and clean it, and you will never know that this was ever done on the bus. I guess short of two little holes that I put for the heating system. Explain that one in a second. Okay, that is in. The exhaust that we did, here's the exhaust. You can see the U-bend. It came out this way, cut this, mounted to the old one with the U-bend in there, and I have my O2 sensor mounted right above that as well. I believe there's two O2 sensors in this one. And you can see, still a stock Subaru exhaust. The plan is to change that one day, but it was working, so we ran with that. Now, with this engine, I was able to buy an adapter plate for this. It's a Kennedy Engineered Products makes it, and it enables you to adapt the Subaru engine to the Volkswagen transmission. Awesome thing. It's only a half-inch thick plate. Piece of cake, you bolt that on, it's done. The best part that they have is they have a flywheel that bolts to the Subaru engine right onto the crankshaft, but then it uses a Volkswagen clutch and a Volkswagen starter, mates right to the transmission. You put those two things on, it's in. Piece of cake. Hardest part was figuring out the plumbing and these radiator hoses. You know, bend them up the best you can with a piece of wire. Bring that wire into this auto parts store, go in the back and try to match something up. It's kind of how I had to do it. It's a little tricky at first, but figured it out, got it in there. It's really neat to get it working, and it has heat now. So what I did, I ran two lines for the heater box, took the whole heater unit out of the old bus, or out of the Subaru, I should say, and just mounted it under the rear seat in here. And now I flick a switch, now we have heat. And it's kind of neat, a little different to have in a bus. Whew, what else am I missing on this one? Jeez, I think I pretty much covered almost everything. If you learned anything, make sure you like and subscribe. Mr. Brian's Amazing World. I mean, it's an awesome, awesome bus. It's a lot of fun. It's definitely a great project. It's a lot of work, but in the end, you're not adjusting valves all the time. You're not messing with carburetors and distributors and points. It's kind of get it in, get it running, set it, forget it, just drive it. It sat for, I don't know, a couple of months. I just got in and turned the key, fired it up. Didn't miss a beat. And the way it was going, and it's a pretty neat project. There it goes. I mean, it's nice and quiet. Pops along. Now this thing hasn't been started in a couple weeks. It's just sitting here, and I figured, let's fire it up for the show here. Let you hear what it sounds like. You can kind of hear the little bit of a whine of these fans. They're on all the time. Figure it's much better to be safe than sorry. And once you rev it up, it's smooth. Runs really, really well. Kind of fun to have that much power in a bus compared to stock and what it had. You can actually fly up hills and pass people. So, again, I hope you subscribe to this. I hope you like it. Ask any questions you want in the comment section. I love to answer them. And I hope I answered more of your questions on this engine and this installation. Oh, another one.
The price overall, I paid about $2 grand altogether for the parts and pieces. I made what I needed to do with the exhaust system and the engine cradle. That's going to be your biggest expense other than the engine mounting plate and the flywheel. Buy those because you're definitely going to need those. Other than that, if you can take the car, which I got for, you know, 500 bucks, and pull the engine and the wiring harness yourself, which is a pain. It's a whole lot of work doing the wiring harness, I'd say. But if you can figure that out and get it hooked into this and do all the work yourself, it's really not that expensive of a project, especially compared to how much these Volkswagen engines are going for these days. And then you don't have all the maintenance and you don't have all the nonsense to do to them. But thanks a lot. Like and subscribe. Mr. Brian's Amazing World. Have a great day.